that brings me now to Fitwell. Fitwell is a platform. It's really born out of this value of collaboration, bringing in the best of the best, as we feel, the currency of it, the relevancy of it, and also the reliability of it as well. Can you talk more on your sort of observation now, knowing a little bit more about Fitwell, how Fitwell can potentially shift the education space and complement what's going on out there, like such as the courses that you deliver?
Well, I'd say probably my best answer to that would be that the whole sort of model on how content is delivered and how it becomes available for the consumer, the personal trainer who's longing for support, longing for action, longing for inspiration, education, right? The model really gives it to them and presents it to them to make it very easy to kind of digest and get access to whenever they are ready for it, when they got time. So it's just great. I mean, as you guys have pitched it as the Netflix kind of model, it's great. It's ready to go, different content, different topics as the personal trainer stumbles across their need. This is new and this is fresh. In addition, of course, it's high quality. The people who are educating are second to none globally, and probably, no doubt there'll be more and more of high standard coming on board as it's becoming clear that this is really, really inspirational and exciting, So it's a new model, I think, because we've been doing it already, right? All the stuff that the different teachers are doing, we've been doing it already. We're experienced educators. It's just that Fitwell is taking it into a more accessible and probably useful model, which is great. That's the big difference.
Yeah, and we're definitely excited to have you on the platform, of course, and especially around the content. Can you talk more about like what you're delivering on the platform, just so people like Neil and others who are listening in may pique their interest to go, hey, I want to learn more about Ulrik and rehab, of course.
Awesome. Yeah, I pitched or I've sort of constructed the content for Fitwell off the back of something we call Rehab Express, which is our one-day face-to-face course. We've been running now for 8 or 9 years. It's got accreditation with Fitness Australia and ACE and also NASM. And it's also an online course. And so I kind of wanted to take some of that content and then launch and do something a little bit different. So what I kind of created for Fitwell off the back of that Rehab Express workshop is this idea of the ultimate functional movement. All right. Now that's gonna mess with someone like Tarek, who's all about functional movement and going, wait a minute, you're saying there's just one ultimate? Well, at least in the terms of ultimate biomechanics. So one way that you could unpack this idea of functional movement is to suggest that perhaps the average way that the human moves, let's say if they're doing a lot of bending, all right, the average way that they end up moving isn't ultimately sustainable and therefore functional. They'll end up moving basically, for the most part, with too much lumbar flexion. It's the classic laziness of the human lifting system, right? It's not to say that lumbar flexion in itself is harmful movement or loaded, but it's to say that if that's the only way that your brain knows how to lift and to bend, then eventually it'll get stuck, it'll get hypersensitized, and you will probably, not definitely, but often at least end up with some lower back pain on a spectrum right through to, more severe disc issues. So that's just an example of how definition of functional and taking that into an exercise. I've actually got a little video I will share with you of me doing the ultimate functional movement. And that'll help you to kind of understand what I'm getting at, that the ultimate functional movement is targeting 5 classic ways that humans become stuck in their movement and therefore become gradually more dysfunctional. And that may well relate to shoulder pain, lower back pain, knee pain, hip pain, chronic pain, right? So the short of it is that if you can learn how to do this functional movement with the attention to detail around 5 different areas of your body, it's a simple movement, it's not complex, but how you do it will define whether it becomes for you or for your client the ultimate functional movement. So in the Fitwell educational series that I present, I break down those 5 components. I discuss in detail the 5 classic stucknesses, shall we say, and we call them muscle imbalances, ways that the brain becomes fixed and unable to kind of auto-correct itself. It becomes stuck. And those 5 areas take a little bit of biomechanical knowledge, a bit of anatomy to try and unpack how you can retrain that and what's going on around those areas. So what we're offering just here today, if you're right for me to share a screen, any questions before I share, Tarek, on that, or?
No, not at all. I think obviously this is edifying stuff. It's interesting. It's those who have been sitting on the fence. We do offer a 7-day free trial on the Fitwell platform. The value is tremendous. So Neil, I've given you my Fitwell email to get in touch. But for those who obviously demanded to watch this, post-session, it's obviously going to be in and around the traps for those who are wanting to come on board, see Ulrik in action and others for 7 days free. But of course, more than that, it's around, like Ulrik pointed to earlier, it's the broad knowledge, but also the relevancy and actually going in and zooming in and going, I want to learn more about rehab, right? I want to learn more about strength training with Clint Hill, for example, or pre and postnatal with Nadia, Jen Ducard. So, we do have, as Ulrik mentioned earlier, we feel the best of the best, and that's going to continue to evolve. So we're very collaborative, and Ulrik's a case in point. So Ulrik, you can share the screen now, my friend.
Yeah, okay. So that just gives people who are watching just a bit of a taste of what the ultimate functional movement is. Let me see if I've got it up here. I should see if I can find it, or else I'll just need to go and find. Is it down the bottom there? I will have to just go and check which of my screens that is. Beg your pardon. I'm just going to jump out for a second and go and.
All right. In the meantime, as you're finding that, Neil and those who are going to be listening in and watching the webinar, we have a series of other webinars, and I'm aiming at least once a week. So how to program for group training, business webinars constantly through the tribe, right? Through the Fitwell Facebook group. So you're going to stay edified, and just letting you folks know of all of the upcoming great webinars with our Fitwell collaborators. I can say that. Ulrik, did you find it?
I did, yeah.
All yours.
Right. So I don't know if you guys can, hopefully you can all see this little screen coming up there. So these are the 5 components of the critical components of this ultimate functional movement, right? That will be your focus. So if someone's got neck, shoulder pain, they'll be focusing potentially around how does that scapula move. If they've got more lower back, hip issues, it'll be how that pelvis and that hip moves. Lower back pain, lower back, how it's moving the knee. And then even again, there's a little section here for vertical press. We see as one of the 5 very common issues for clients is that overhead push and getting pain inside the shoulder. So I've got a little video of me here. I'll just make sure you can see that. So this is kind of defining or showing you this ultimate functional movement. Hopefully that's coming through all right. So here we've got one component in the lunge. I'm just breaking it down. That's the row component. Then we have the overhead press component and the certain very important ingredients of the overhead press. And then at the end, I'll put them all together into the one movement. All right. So we've looked at the row, the vertical press. We're now looking at what we call the hip hinge, ensuring that clients are doing the perfect hip hinge in the movement. There's a few hip hinges for me. Then we're looking at that level pelvis. How well can the client maintain a level pelvis without that drop, that very important control of the pelvis, preventing that drop on the opposite side. So that's the single leg control. And then we're into the lunge finally, making sure that that knee tracks beautifully over the middle of the foot but also that it does travel a little bit forward beyond the toes. That's another critical component of the lunge. Then I'm going to put them all together. Okay, hopefully it's not too glitchy for you guys. The row first, and coming out of the lunge, and then the vertical press. It's a bit glitchy possibly, but anyway, the row into the vertical press with the lunge and the hip hinge and the horizontal pelvis. So from behind, watching it, checking that pelvis is level, going into the vertical press. All right, so hopefully that was reasonably clear as mud. I don't know how the internet received that or how glitchy that was or not. Did that come through at all?
Yeah, it was a bit glitchy, but I think I got it. I think Neil got it too. No, but I obviously know the content quite well, working with you on elements of it and being on the journey for almost 12 years with you. And I've seen the evolution of it, and the stuff just simply works, you know. And I think because it comes from the sports physio world, it's very practical though. So there's no real hardcore evidence to prove that these things have been studied. They're in journals. But there are elements of it, obviously the important elements being the anatomy and the functioning of that, and the safe biomechanics, right? And so I love things like your press coming out slightly at 45 degrees or slightly out, and then being able to have proper lifting mechanics, which precedes your strength and conditioning, right? So you don't have to be injured to be consuming this stuff. And I think that's what's critical about it.